I had wanted to be a writer for ages. For as long as I could remember, it was my dream. I studied science, I went into a scientific career, but it was never really where my heart lay. I always wanted to be an author of books. If you want to take your writing seriously, there are a few things that you really need to do in order to get yourself moving. I'm Michelle Adams. I'm going to tell you what it took to take me from hopeful writer to professional writer. One of the most fundamental things that I had to change about my mindset was that I didn't have the time. I thought I didn't have the time to be a writer because my life was pretty full with other stuff. I would be reading, watching TV, I had hobbies, I would be out climbing and various things like that. So for me, writing was something I always procrastinated about, saying, well, I don't really have time to do it. You have to look at your life and assess it realistically as to where you can just steal time from. For me, it was about stealing time in the evening from the TV. And you say, in hindsight, you know, I thought I was busy and actually I was just busy with nothing. So it was relatively easy, despite the fact that I worked a huge number of hours in my day job. Somewhere in your day, there's time to write 400 or 500 words, especially once you're in that mindset and you start thinking about writing more. When you make it part of your daily routine, you know what you want to write before you sit down, so you might even be able to knock out 500 words within 20 minutes. That's not long. That's as long as it takes to have a shower, or I'm not suggesting you shouldn't have a shower, but you know, you could easily do that in the morning if you got up just a little bit earlier. Something else I really had to change about my mindset when it came to wanting to be a writer was that it was unachievable. I always thought it was going to be unachievable because you hear so many people who want to be a writer and do that for their job, but they can't get past the stage of getting an agent. So kind of at the back of my mind, it didn't seem like a very serious plan. The easiest way for me to overcome that was by telling people about it. And I'd been doing this for a long time, telling them that I was going to write a book and that, you know, I wanted to be an author. Some people were really encouraging, other people were a bit disparaging. But telling people, for me at least, sort of gave me that social embarrassment that if I didn't at least try, then I was failing even before I started. And that for me is a huge driving force. I don't want to look like a failure in front of people. If you tell people about your dream, they make it more real for you because suddenly it exists in the real world, not just your head. So if you want to be a writer, go out there and tell the world, and then find those 15-20 minutes a day and sit down at your computer. Being a writer, when you're not a writer, feels quite intangible. It's quite hard to go from the concept of wanting to write to actually being a professional writer with a contract and a publisher and all the things that go with it. And I found one of the things that really helped me was trying to associate with people that were already doing that. In the beginning, I was self-publishing a lot of stuff. And so for me, being in contact with a lot of other self-publishers was really useful. I found a home on a forum and I communicated with as many people as I could. I asked them about their process, things that they knew. I tried to glean information from them. The other thing that I did was read books written by people about writing that I admired. One of the books that I really loved was On Writing by Stephen King. He was a massive hero of mine, probably like the main inspiration as to why I wanted to be a writer when I was a child. So having the chance to sit down and read a book like that, where he talks about his journey and how many rejections he got and how he had them tacked to the wall with the big nail, and then how he eventually got published and his advice about what to do after that, it was just really important. And I think it really puts you in touch with your heroes. And at the risk of sounding a bit cheesy, you kind of need to find that person inside of yourself that wants to be that person, and that helped for me to bring it out. A couple of other things that I did that I think really made a difference to me being successful in the sense of getting an agent and finding a publisher was that I really upped my reading. My reading went through the roof. It's basically like a masterclass in what you want to do, especially if you read the genre that you want to get a contract in. So for me, it was all about reading psychological thrillers, and I read everything that I could find. A bit like reading people's memoirs or writing advice, reading their actual work. at the beginning it could be a bit difficult because you take on the voice of the people that you are reading, because in a way you want to emulate them, but once you read enough, and you read enough different authors, and you read through different genres as well, all it really does is put you in touch with the level of quality that's expected. And I think that gives you a really critical eye when you are looking at your own writing and the things that you're producing. It's not hard, as long as you're honest with yourself, to look at something that's published and look at what you're writing and saying, does it stand up? Does it sound like it could have been written by a published author? Does it look like the kind of things that are on my bookshelf? Not that bookshelf, any bookshelf. When I wrote my first book, which I did shop around to agents and it didn't find a home, what I didn't know or really appreciate or anything really was that it needed to be edited. I kind of thought that editing was a quick run through for grammatical errors and typos, that kind of thing. So when I'd finished it, that's what I did, and I thought that was ready. I was not trained at university level in creative writing or even English literature. As I say, I went on to study science, more for me. So you really have to understand that redrafting is your friend. That is going to make the biggest difference to your writing. If you want to be a serious writer, your first draft, you have to accept, is way off what you naturally need to be producing come the end. And even still, once I thought that I knew what editing was, that it was about character development and you know, structural changes in the book that you write from the first draft to the last draft, even then, once I sent it off to an agent, I don't think I really appreciated what an editor would go on to do and what my agent would go on to do. I edited the book first with my agent and then with my editor, and it took a good 6 or 7 months to take that book from my original submission to what the publisher accepted as the final product. So be friendly with what it means to critically analyse your own work and redraft it, because once you are in a position to have an agent and an editor, you're really going to have to do that. So they're going to ask you to look at your work critically, so start the process before you start looking for an agent. Thanks so much for joining me with this video. If you are in the process of trying to take your writing more seriously, please leave your comments below. If you want to subscribe, you can do so over here. And if you are interested in what I think are some top 5 tips for finding an agent, you will find that video just over here as well. Until next time, happy reading, happy writing.